Here is an exploration of John Hembrough's motivations. Today, I will share with you my characteristics of a narcissist. Here is a deep pastoral plus psychological analysis of John's underlying motivations, based on the full content of his 2018 letter, pages 9 to 12, viewed through three lenses. 1. Pastoral lens, emotional plus spiritual drivers. 2. Psychological lens, subconscious motivations. 3. Narcissistic injury lens, distorted thought patterns, defensiveness, and blame shifting. This is not an accusation. This is a structured analysis of motivations behind the narcissistic patterns in his writing. Listen to a reading of the email and this analysis, and decide what resonating with the truth. True or false? You will know. Below is the full breakdown. Lens there. 1. Pastoral lens. 5 key narcissistic, spiritual, and emotional drivers of John Hembrough, founder and CEO, Rayjon Group. 1. Deep, unresolved resentment. The letter contains decades of built-up frustration. Resentment over finances, resentment over responsibility, resentment about Mom's dependence, resentment over Mark's creative life, resentment over past conflicts. Resentment that is unprocessed becomes distortion. Pastorally, resentment blinds a person to truth and fairness. 2. Unhealed grief. John goes to great lengths to describe his father's death, the West Street house stress, his mother's dependency, his role as caregiver, his exhaustion. This is a man who never healed any of this. Unhealed grief becomes blame, often directed at the wrong person. Mark, in this narrative, becomes the vessel for all grief. 3. Identity built on being the responsible one. John's self-image is anchored in, I managed everything. I carried everyone. I held the family together. I protected Mom and Dad. When a person's identity is threatened, they become defensive and hostile. Thus Mark questioning him, an attack on John's very identity. 4. Fear of exposure. Pastorally, fear can mask itself as anger. John may fear that agreements did exist. His actions did interfere with the film project. His denial was false. Mark does have evidence. The conciliation process will reveal truth. So the letter becomes a preemptive defense. 5. A need to stay in control. Spiritually, when someone has always been the authority, they often cannot tolerate being questioned. This letter is filled with control of narrative, control of history, control of interpretation, control of blame, control of the emotional frame. Control becomes the idol that replaces truth. Lens 2. Psychological lens. Unconscious motivations. 1. Grandiosity and self-amplification. John overdescribes his role and sacrifices. This is common in people who need to elevate themselves to feel safe. 2. Selective memory. John details every sacrifice he made, every financial stress, every burden, but recalls nothing positive Mark contributed. This is not truthful memory, this is motivated forgetting. 3. Narrative rewriting. The letter reframes 20-plus years so that John Park hero, Mark Hark's problem, Mum Hark helpless, Dad absent in finances, Rayjon benevolent, all issues, Mark's fault, all solutions, terminated because of Mark. This is not objective historical recounting, it is constructed narrative. 4. Emotional displacement. He places onto Mark grief, anger, responsibility, guilt, fear, exhaustion. This is classic emotional displacement. The wrong person receives the right emotion. Lens 3. Narcissistic injury. Lens, distortion and defense. This does not mean John is clinically narcissistic. It means his letter displays narcissistic injury patterns. These patterns can appear when someone feels threatened, challenged, criticized, exposed, questioned. Here are the patterns seen. 1. blame shifting. Nothing is his fault. Everything is Mark's fault. Even his own decisions he frames as forced by Mark. 2. Lack of empathy. He describes Mum grieving, family trauma, Mark's hardships, Mark's struggles with Natalie, but never once expresses empathy. He uses these details only to support his argument. 3. Victim mentality. Despite being the authority in a $650 million company, he positions himself as overwhelmed, pressured, targeted, threatened, abused, helpless. This protects ego. I am the victim, therefore I cannot be wrong. 4. Aggressive moral superiority. He frames himself as the only responsible one, the only financially competent one, the only emotionally stable one, the only person who sacrificed people in narcissistic injury, use moral superiority as armor. 5. Projection. He accuses Mark of being out of control, causing pressure, behaving badly, creating chaos, threatening legal action. But these behaviors appear in John's own actions across the dispute. Projection is when a person sees in another what they cannot accept in themselves. 6. Avoidance of the real issue. Mark asked, "Why did you terminate the agreement with Hans?" John responds with, pages of unrelated history, grievances, explanations, emotional retellings. But not the question. Avoiding the core issue is a high-level narcissistic defense mechanism. Comments on discoveries. The pastoral truth. Hatred reshapes history. If John has held hatred, resentment, unhealed wounds, jealousy, feelings of superiority, bitterness, then he will genuinely believe his rewritten version of events. In pastoral counseling, this is called subjective truth eclipsing objective truth. A person begins to live inside a world created by their own pain, and they present these distorted memories as absolute facts. This is why Christian conciliation is needed, to bring objective truth, to restore clarity, to break through resentment, to remove spiritual blindness, to replace distortion with light,